So space planning in SketchUp is really one of the kind of best uses of the program. And the reason is because of the vast library of components that are available for use in SketchUp. And they're mostly free, although there certainly are paid ones. And they're very easy to manipulate in the views. So let's take a look at a couple of them. So first of all, out of the box from SketchUp, there are a number of different options here in the kind of pull down or fly down menu, however you want to call it. By default, it shows you the components that are in the model. You may also have your own collections. There is a components sampler, which has a number of pretty common ones, including scale figures. And then there are some architectural ones, which are quite nice for what we tend to do. Obviously, you do need to be on the internet for these to work. But what you can see, there's really all sorts of terrific things out there, foosball games, countertop blenders. I mean, you can really put everything that would go in a project there. And what I'm going to show you, first of all, I'll take a look at what's called a dynamic component, DC component, that's what it stands for, dynamic component. There are quite a few of these out there in the 3D warehouse and here available via search. Let's take a look, let's grab this one here, the base cabinet with 2 drawers. And what that is, it's basically a cabinet with the possibility for end panels, and you can control the width of the component. And so I'll just stick this in here, and I'll put it in my plan. And here, let's go to the view to back so that we can see what it looks like. Okay, you see it's not really all that exciting, but one feature that it has that's quite nice is if I right-click on the component and choose Dynamic Components from the context menu, and then Component Options, these dynamic components have a very nice feature where, for example, I could change the width and I can make it have finished end caps, for example. You see how the component immediately shrinks to fit whatever size I've told it. I don't need to do any further manipulation. So, for example, if I let me close this here and I'll move this into the corner. I suppose I could probably measure how big this needs to be, but I'll just make a copy of this guy. We'll drag it on along over here. And I can make the copy something entirely different, which again, it's just a little bit of a time saver. You could absolutely use things like the stretch command to achieve the same results, but you can see how pretty quickly I can get fairly close to what I need for this particular location. Maybe I'll leave this a little bit short. For accessibility at the door. Okay, so there you go. So that's a very basic way to put in some components that have some flexibility to them. Otherwise, you can absolutely search in this menu, and this accesses the 3D warehouse. And some people prefer to just do it in this menu. Here, we'll go here to the cafe seating, see what they've got. Some people prefer to go through the full-on 3D warehouse dialog, which is obviously quite nice. Anyway, we can keep on going and digging through and finding components. I really just need a chair. So I think I'll use this chair here. I just like the look of it. And I'll put it off to the side here just to give me a little bit of space to show you some of the options. It is nice when the model is kind of unencumbered. So basically, here we are. I have this component. First of all, when you click on the Move command, I usually tap the M button with my right hand. There are certain basic grips. Obviously, I can click on the ground to move it left or right. If I click on the object, be aware that sometimes you can accidentally drag that chair vertically. It can be quite difficult to see sometimes if you've done that. So I recommend if you're just moving it along the ground, don't click on the object. Click on the ground. Anyway, these grips up here, the little plus signs, are rotate grips. And those are really nice to make kind of little subtle changes. There is a snapping which happens. I believe my snap is set to every 15 degrees. So that's a basic way that you can modify the chair. Now, if I just want some straight rows, for example, I can use my move command and tap Control or Alt on a Mac. And you see how there's this little plus sign next to my cursor. That indicates that I'm going to be making copies. And if I want a straight row, it's really important to use your axes. See how I'm getting the red axis tooltip. And I can move my mouse over, and of course I have a readout of the distance over here. But what I often do when I'm spacing seating is I have some distance in mind, say 20 inches. Okay. A little more precise, and you can actually look up recommended spacing for different types of seating configurations. Anyway, there are several modifiers. If I type in the letter X and some number, say 10, it will give me 10 copies of that chair. Let's say I decide, oh wait, I only want 7. I can type in X7, and as long as I haven't activated any other command, I can modify this array that I've just created. So let's say I change it to 6, but maybe I want them to be 24 inches apart. Okay. Now, as soon as I activate another command, it can be any command at all. Now X7, whatever, it doesn't do anything. Okay, and I cannot come back in. These are all individual components. I can't come back in and change the spacing later on. However, I can make a second array, and what I like to do is if I know I'm going to have a lot of rows that are basically the same in terms of number of chairs, I'll create a component of the component, call it row of chairs, and now when I make my kind of array of the array, let's say these are 3 feet apart, and I can make 6 rows, and there we go. Oh wait, I'd like a little more spacing. That's a little cramped. I can make it, what did I say? 3 feet, 3 foot 6. Okay. So there are quite a few features that are very nice. Now, let's say you want to just fill. Whoops, don't want to delete them all. Let's say you wanted to fill your plan with these chairs, but you actually don't know what spacing is going to work. Another option is when you have the move command and you've made your copy, start at one end of the array and move your second copy to the end of where you think the array should go, and then use the modifier slash and say some number. When I type in /5 and enter, it will give me 5 copies evenly spaced from the first one. And if I don't like it, if I want more of them, I can do /6 or /4, depending on the spacing that I want. So that is another way to do an array. Okay. Now, let's say we want an array. I'm just going to explode this. But we want it to be curving. Maybe we want a little bit of an arc to the seats. Now maybe I'll move this into the plan to get a better sense of exactly how much space I have for my array. I'll move this guy over to the corner, and I'll use my rotate tool to kind of point it towards the middle. And what I can do is use the rotate command. However, I can use the rotate command and tap the Alt. Once again, I have the little plus sign that I can use to rotate rotate and copy. This time, I'm going to plant the center of my rotation here off in the edge of the plan. I think it'll just look a little nicer. Now, I can drag make the copy off at some angle on the opposite side of the room, and I'll use that slash modifier to create a series of copies right in between. And you see how SketchUp interpolates the angle from the first to the last. That might be too many. There we go. And there we go. Now I have an arcing array. And I can do the same thing that I did before. Make a component out of this curved row. Oops. And then move copy the row. So I can get multiple arrays of my array. That's probably need a few more. There we go. So that's a very quick way to set up some basic space planning, finding the components you like, experimenting with different types of arrangements, taking advantage of dynamic components if possible, and if not, hunting around for components, either using the components browser or by using the full-on 3D warehouse. Again, the 3D warehouse gives you more information and a kind of bigger interface, and this is nice if you have multiple monitors. You can leave this up. So the last thing is that I'm going to call up my layers menu, and let's say I have a lovely design option here, but I want to show one with curves, and we'll just copy this and paste it in here. But I want to have a second option that has straight chairs. What I can do is I can explode this, and I'll just save one of these chairs here. I don't need them all. And I can change the layer of this to option 2. You'll see it actually disappears. But now I can, let me just put this back into floor plan view. I can add a scene, and I'll rename this scene option 1 plan. And now I'm going to make my current layer option 2 and turn off option 1. And I'm going to add a new scene, which I will call option 2 plan. And what's nice about that, I can come in and I'll just move my chair over here, and we'll straighten it out just a hair, make some copies. And I can pretty quickly generate two options for my plan. Now you'll notice that anything that was on that original option 1 layer will not show up. So if I decide to use the same kind of cabinets, I will have to copy them from option 1 into option 2. Anyway, this allows me, see how I can quickly switch from one option to the other, which is awfully nice if you're sort of comparing or you're copying different elements. Let's say I want to keep these, but I want them to be part of option 2 as well. I just have to copy those two cabinets, put them on the correct layer, and now I could move these into place. You know, maybe I want to rotate them and move them into the corner. And maybe I don't want this guy, I don't know. Anyway, there are so many different ways to accomplish space planning that it's really a multifaceted and multi-option sort of thing. But that's the basics of how you would create different options. Obviously, I would come up with another one, option 3, and again, being careful to make sure that I have the ones I expect on each layer. The final piece of this is if I have perspective views already created, which I have, first of all, now I've put furniture in. This is you know, kind of an interesting view, but maybe not the view that is going to look nearly as good. So maybe the time has come to change this original view. Maybe I want to look down from above or something like that. So I can update this, but what I should do is make sure it's absolutely clear that this is view to back option 1. And of course, when you do this, you start to get some very long names, so you might develop a shorthand for these. And it's quite easy to go to your layers menu, take this option 1 view, and turn on and off the different options. And I'll just add a new scene, and now we have a scene for back, you know, option 2. Okay. Again, you're just trying to help yourself to create a better design and help your clients to understand what you're doing.